And we're live. Patty, did you want to start it off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for this live call today. And, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because over the last few years, about 6 years, our community has grown tremendously. And, our Facebook group now has more than 16,000 members. And there's a lot of people in there. In the beginning, when we first started, when Aga and I first started working with this cleanse, helping coach people, it was a much smaller community, and we were able to really provide a lot more personal attention to our clients because there was just a lot fewer of you. And as it's grown, as our community has grown, as word of this cleanse has gotten out there, there's only 2 of us, so we're just less able to provide the same kind of one-on-one attention. But what we've noticed is that all of our clients that we have ever worked with who do get our one-on-one attention through the cleanse, but also after the cleanse to support the gut healing process, being able to work with people consistently, regularly, is a way to really ensure their success. And so we're just really grateful to have you all here. We're going to do a few of these live events. Just stay in tune with your emails to get a taste of what it would be like to work with us consistently, having live access to us like this, and to also learn more about this group coaching program that we have coming up in January.
Mm-hmm. So here, everybody has the little chat button. So type into the chat if you have a cleanse already, a Candida cleanser, but you haven't started it yet. So just a show of hands here. And we're going to go over the proper protocol, which can be a little bit intimidating or confusing at first because, as you see on the bottle, you have to take the Candida cleanser 4 times a day for 5 days, and then you take a 10-day break, and then you take the capsules again for 5 days, and then you take a break, and then 5 days and take a break. So it's a cycle of 5 days on, 10 days off, 3 times. And basically it's done this to build up the lufeneron in your system. The cleanse is basically just one compound, lufeneron, which is totally benign and safe to the human body. There's nothing else like it. If you go to your doctor and you get an antifungal like diflucan, that's really, really toxic on the liver and can cause severe liver damage. And any kind of detox organ, so your kidneys as well, it'll damage. And it's just, we find that it's not as effective for systemic candida, whereas lufeneron is basically benign to the human body. It only attacks the chitin layer of candida. So to backtrack a little bit, mainstream conventional medicine, they don't quite understand the fungal version of Candida. They mostly address the yeast version. And if you have an overgrowth of yeast in the gut, it stays in the gut, causing digestive issues and imbalances, but it's very much contained in your digestive system. And that's a lot easier to treat with diet, with diatomaceous earth and probiotics. But what happens is there's a circle of life, a harmonious balance in your gut with Candida yeast and your good gut bacteria. Your good gut bacteria actually will eat the yeast. The yeast is food for your gut bacteria. But due to our overuse of antibiotics, chlorine in our water, our stress, pollutants in the air, we have actually killed off the colonies of beneficial gut bacteria in our digestive system, in our digestive tract, and there's nothing to keep the yeast in line. And it does something quite profound that the medical system has, or the medical community has been studying for a while now. The yeast transforms, it's dimorphic. It goes from this harmful yeast that feeds your bacteria and eats excess toxins in your gut. It's actually a beneficial role. It's like the janitor. It then morphs into this fungus and grows this protective chitin layer that your own immune system can't get through. And chitin is the same stuff that a lobster's exoskeleton is made out of, a cockroach, ticks, fleas, and cockroaches are so hard to kill, right? And it's this exoskeleton of chitin, whereas lufeneron basically makes its way into the fungus. The fungus eats it up, basically goes in there, kind of like the masquerading horse of what the Trojan horse goes in, and the Candida will eat this compound and it'll begin to attack its exoskeleton, and your own body goes in there to your own immune system goes in and finally gets rid of the fungal colonies. So the chitin, or the lufeneron, we take it 4 times a day because we want to build it up in our system. And as it builds up throughout the loading periods, it also begins to release during the off period. So even though you're not loading on those 10 days off, there's still the lufeneron in your system that's slowly being released and basically making the Candida weak. So Patty, did you want to add?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge some people have been commenting saying that they do have the cleanse, but they haven't started, or even having used it a few years ago and having another cleanse, but currently fighting some extreme sugar cravings. So I just want to say that I feel you. It is a journey sometimes. It's not always a linear journey. And even myself, after I did my very first CCWS, my first time in 2013, after that, I reinfected myself a number of times because my gut was still super damaged from my whole lifetime with all of my symptoms that I'd ever experienced my whole life, the IBS, etc. So I just want to acknowledge everybody who's here. If you're still struggling, to maintain the positivity, maintain the hope, you can do this. It's okay if you accidentally reinfected again. Don't be too hard on yourself if that's ever happened to any of you. We're human. We were set up to have fungal candida. I mean, the world is essentially set up for us to develop this overgrowth. So just know you're not alone. Aga and I have both been there more than once. And stay positive, because you can do this, and it's going to get easier every time. It gets easier and better every time. Your body's able to heal more and more every time. In terms of the protocol, it is true. So the lufeneron only has one purpose. It helps to break down that exoskeleton. And if any of you heard my story where just in the few months before I did my first CCWS, I was literally peeling biofilms out of my cheeks, and I was like, ew, what is that? It was like this weird, almost like saran wrap like thing that came out of the insides of my cheeks. And I would just put it in a tissue and throw it away. It grossed me out. But then finally I was like, what is this? And at this point I still had no idea it was Candida, right? I was just falling apart and in so much pain. But I put it on a plate, and after it dried, it turned into this really hard kind of yellowish thing. Like literally I could pick it up off the plate, and it had turned into like a hard little, almost like plastic stick, because it was like this little film that, I just like kind of put on the plate, and it was like kind of long stringy thing. And when it hardened, it was literally this hard plate, a hard like plastic like substance. And so if you think about this fungal candida in the body creating these biofilms, and then those colonies can age as well, right? So that's probably why you're experiencing the pain that you're experiencing, the stiffness, right? How about the comments, even Aga mentioned this, myself too, of waking up and feeling like you just got hit by a truck. And it's like, why am I waking up after sleeping and being in so much pain and stiffness? That's that biofilm candida. It almost becomes like a second fascia in your body. It's like a web of bacteria that's growing and trying to create more of itself to survive stronger.
Yeah,
so
this people experience like fibromyalgia pains, and it's misdiagnosed, but it's that like chitin layer that's constricting everything and making you feel so stiff. Yeah.
So when you take the Candida cleanser, lufenuron, it breaks down that chitin stuff, and your immune system is what fights and gets the Candida and starts to kill the Candida and remove it out of your body. So just wanted to share that.
Mm-hmm. And so the protocol, you take the capsules 4 times a day, and that can be intimidating for some people. Or I don't even eat 4 times a day. So what we figured out is that you can actually adjust the protocol and take it twice a day, and just take 2 capsules twice a day. And this is a lot more manageable. I personally, when I do that, I don't eat breakfast till about 11 or noon, and then I'll have dinner at 6. And that way I can load up on the fats. So it's very important to take 14 grams of fat with each capsule. This is very specific for the protocol because lufenuron gets absorbed into your body with fat. So when you're taking 2 capsules, you want to double up on your fats. That's 28 grams of fat. And this can seem like a lot of fat at first. You may not be used to it. And it's a lot easier to eat this much fat when you're not eating as much carbs or sugar, which is basically the diet that we recommend, a more paleo, low carb diet. And it's the fat that is extremely not only nourishing to the body, all the cell membranes and to the digestive system, hormone production. It also is very satiating. So your sugar cravings, just alone with the dietary shift of cutting out carbohydrates and eating more fats, you will find that you are more satiated. So it's a lot easier to eat more fat for me personally, twice a day, and just double up my capsules. And then that gives me more time in between to take, say, a Zeoco, which binds with toxins to help prevent symptoms of die-off. You have a larger window to take probiotics as well, your other supplements. And that being said, the cleanse itself does not interfere with medications. So you can take it with, if you're taking insulin or something for your cholesterol, it won't interfere with any medication, which is so excellent.
The only thing that could potentially interfere with anything else that you are taking is the Zeoco binder that comes with the kit. And that's a pretty well-known thing. If you take these types of activated charcoal or zeolite binders with prescription medicines, which are kind of foreign, right, to the body. It's not like a food nutrient, and those binders will attract foreign substances through the electrical charge. So when you take binders with prescription medicine, it could potentially interfere in that sense of it could accidentally absorb your prescription medicine. So if you are on any prescription medicine, make sure that you do not take those at the same time as the Zeoco, but you can take them at the same time as your other supplements and the CCWS cleanse. So the CCWS itself does not interfere with anything else. It doesn't break down any further chemically, and so it can't interact with anything else. But the Zeoco can bind other chemicals, so just beware of that.
Mm-hmm. And one important note on the fats when you're taking with the Candida cleanser capsules is to avoid MCT oils. That's medium chain triglycerides, and they are abundant in coconut oil. So we often say to just avoid coconut oil with those capsules, because coconut oil or MCT oils actually avoid digestion. They go straight into your bloodstream and get burned as energy and fuel. So it basically doesn't allow the lufenuron to be absorbed in your body. So healthy fats you want to include are something like ghee, which is clarified butter, which is a really safe option for people who are lactose intolerant. Essentially, with ghee, it's butter, but the milk solids have been removed through a gentle heating process. And ghee in itself is full of butyrate, and butyrate is instant food for your colon cells and the cells of your gut lining. And here's a little known fact is your gut bacteria, the healthy gut bacteria that once kept your Candida yeast in line, they actually create butter in your belly, butyric acid, butyrate, and feed your digestive system, feed the cells of your gut lining. However, as their population depletes over the years with the antibiotics and your gut turns into like, there's gut dysbiosis happening, there's not enough gut bacteria, they aren't providing enough nutrients for you to actually repair your guts. So that's what I love it. Your digestive or your probiotics actually making butter in your belly without you even knowing. So I love ghee.
And when you can, obviously when you can, try to source your ghee from grass-fed butter. You can purchase grass-fed ghee at the store. You can also, if you want to save money and do a little DIY at home, you can buy grass-fed butter and make ghee very easily at home. And it's a lot less expensive than buying grass-fed ghee at the store. So that's just another little tip that can save you some money on your journey.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to also say that a really amazing source of fat that you might not realize is a really great source of fat is bone broth. Marrow bone broth actually ends up having a really high content of fat. The marrow itself that's in the marrow bones is rich in incredibly nourishing fats. It's also a really balanced food because it has also proteins and amino acids, and it's really balanced and assimilatable. So if you make, so for me, when I in the past have done my Candida cleanser, I'll make a big soup with bone broth, and it'll be super rich. And I'll just take my pills with a big bowl of soup. And if I feel intuitively like that bowl of soup might not have quite enough fat, then I'll add a little dollop of ghee to that soup. But generally, if we have a little bit of other stuff, if there's a little meat in the soup, there's usually a little fat in that meat as well. So you tend to be able to get enough fats from that.
Yeah, I love adding avocado to it. I'll actually cut up avocado and put that in my soup.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who are making bone broth at home, if you store it in the fridge, you'll notice there's this fat layer on the top that solidifies. And at first, you might be like, wow, what is that? Gross. That is actually really amazing mineral dense fat that you can scrape off and use to cook vegetables with, or like melt and add into your broth. It's really excellent. And I just wanted to address here, I see that there's a question from, or a comment from Maria. I've been drinking homemade kefir and kombucha, and it feels like I have woken up Candida infection and made it worse. Should I continue with the probiotic foods while on the cleanse? So probiotic foods are, there's kind of like a conundrum. Some people can actually handle them very well, and some actually need to stay away from the fermented foods at first. However, kefir and kombucha still tend to have a lot of sugar in it. So I would not take homemade kefir and kombucha right away. I would put that aside and take probiotic perhaps in a supplement form, or the EM Pro that we have. That is a much more effective probiotic in the early stages of cleansing Candida.
And it could be a sign of the gut. So I noticed for myself that in the very beginning, because I was a stage 4, my gut was really damaged. And it was as if when I tried kefir and kombucha at that time, the wild yeast ferments that can be in those two things were actually reinfecting me because it was escaping out of my gut. So I had to repair my gut lining before I could take kefir or kombucha again. So that's something to also explore, and just to check in, see what stage you're at, and take some precaution in that sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's also a question from Lawrence about the group coaching program. And I just want to let you know, Lawrence, that we did come up with a way to do like a limited version of it for people to walk through some of the program, but we just wouldn't be able to do really direct one-on-one support. with you through the whole journey of the 8 weeks, because the whole point of the group coaching program is so that we can really dive really deep with each person. It's limited spots. Between Aga and I, we would be able to make sure that we're responding to everybody's emails and whatnot, 24-hour email access. So there is going to be an option. So if you stay tuned, we're going to announce another option where you can at least tune into watching the content to guide your own self-cleanse at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here I see a question from Jeannie Judd. I have the liquid cleanse. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Is it the EM Pro, the probiotic? Yeah, great. Well, why don't we open up the line for a live question? Is there anyone here who has a question? You can raise your hand. There's an option if you, I believe, go into participants at the bottom of the screen. There's a little like lift my hand and we can actually unmute you. And if you want, you can go live and ask us a question. Or if you want, if you feel more comfortable, you can type it into the chat. Like, what is holding you back right now from starting the cleanse? What are you afraid of? Or yeah, what do you need support with? Mm-hmm. No questions.
I did think of one more thing also in response to Lawrence's question, is that we do have an option with payment plans if that's something that you want to explore as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that could make it a little easier.
Yeah, I know one common fear that people ask me often is they're afraid that their body can't handle the die-off, or that their immune system is too weak. Or there's one here, actually, someone who said this, that the sugar cravings are just so intense and I can't stay on the diet. Well, my answer to that is like, well, start. Your immune system is going to get stronger. The starts working almost like almost instantly, and starts to get at the fungal infection and making it weaker, so making your immune system stronger. And the second you start attacking it, your sugar cravings, sometimes it takes 3 days. There's so many stories of people who take the cleanse and 3 days later all their sugar cravings are gone. A week later their sugar cravings are gone. And this is what happens naturally when that fungus begins to die off. Sure, in the die-off period you might get a surge of sugar cravings, but there's always things you can do. There's different foods you can eat, different type of supplements or minerals you can take. So there's always something you can do to remedy the craving, and know that you don't have to do the diet perfectly at first for this cleanse to work. You don't have to stay on it 100%, because we're all human. We're all going to succumb to a craving here and there, and it's not going to make the cleanse totally ineffective. It's much better to start where you're at and then notice the improvements as you move through the cleanse.
I have a question. It's Lawrence. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, gals. I appreciate that. As I mentioned, finances are a bit tight right now, but what exactly would I be tuning into? Like I did a bottle of CC, I forget what you call it, a couple of years ago, and it went quite well. I've done some fasting in the past, but I just thought if I could check in, and what would I exactly be checking in or watching or listening to, Patty? What was that you mentioned, just to kind of help me stay a little bit more connected?
So it's a modified version of the coaching program, because Ag and I are creating video modules, and also like little yoga videos, meditation, a lot of things to support the whole holistic picture, how to manage stress and your nervous system, calming the nervous system with practices and breathing, having access to the information, but not necessarily getting the more time-consuming support that would require a lot of our individual time, which is really the one-on-one coaching, journeying through all those 8 weeks.
Right.
I think that's really where the value of the group coaching program comes in, because you would have 24-hour email access to us where we can be there for you every day, right? Versus, you know, trying to get information when available through the group or whatnot, or having all these people responding to your Facebook messages
Yeah.
in the Facebook group. It can be a little bit noisy in there. So
And
Okay.
I
yeah.
just brought up what we're including in the 8-week coaching program. I'm sharing my screen here. And so basically this is 8 weeks of coaching with us where we get together every single week. And the first week is diet, second week is die off. Then we have a week with a naturopath to come in to do a Q&A. Then we've got a group state of healing. And basically you'd have access to all the 8 calls. You just wouldn't get access to the meal plans or email access to us or any of the tools and resources in the membership area. We actually have a private membership area that with each coaching call, there's actually homework and assignments and supplementary information to support the cleanse.
Okay. So those videos that I could access for support, are they kind of like already up on your website?
Not yet, because we start the group coaching program on January 17th. So this is
Okay.
we're starting, and you can join the coaching program, the full 8 weeks, be with us live, or right after we launch, we'll be taking just the recorded videos and having that as a separate segment that you can join in on.
Yeah, there's, you know, I think it's what you're offering is tremendous value to it. It's just like I said, I'm off work right now. My benefits haven't even started. And my Canadian dollar is like at 75 cents on the US. So it's like,
Yeah.
but, okay, so how would I go about setting that sort of limited access program up?
Yeah, we'll be sending information and links in these next few days leading up to the start of the coaching program, and you'll see that being offered to those who may not be able to join the actual live group coaching as a separate package.
Okay, and and do you have a fee worked out for that separate package, or how would that work?
Yeah, we're looking at I think 97. So there's not, again, there isn't the actual one-on-one quite as much attention, but it's more of a do it at your own
Yeah.
DIY type of thing that
So
you
did
get.
you say $97 for that?
We haven't set the price yet. This is something we're kind of
Okay,
giving you the
that's
heads up that this is
that's all good. Yeah, yeah. I'll keep tuned in, and that might just be all I need to kind of
yeah.
get me going. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are you on our mailing list?
I believe I am, but I'll make sure. I just go to your website and sign up, right?
I don't believe you can actually sign up for a mailing. I think when you sign up with the free download, you get put on our list. But if anything, you can just in the chat if you want, or private message us your email, and we can make sure that you get that information.
Yeah, I'm sure we can make that happen. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Aga, for answering that email question I had about Ecuador.
Oh, that was you. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then I wanted to touch in on this question from Sylvia about diabetes and doing the cleanse. And I want to bring in my own story here, because prior to my first CCWS in 2013, I was personally suspecting that I was becoming pre-diabetic. Basically in 2012, my body suddenly ballooned up about 25% of my own body weight out of control. I was actually eating all organic, mostly vegan. Thought I was being so healthy, but my body just suddenly blew up out of control. I was starting to have worse and worse pain and worse inflammation. And my body's reaction to sugar became much more severe, and my addiction to sugar became much more severe. And my suspicion with why all of that started to change once I started taking the CCWS is that the Candida was no longer eating all of the food. So it's this kind of interesting dynamic that happens in your body where the Candida is actually craving all the sugar. You're craving, then you're craving all the sugar. You're eating all of this sugar, but at the same time, it's almost like your own blood sugar levels just keep taking these nosedives, right? And it was this really paradoxical situation where it was like my insulin resistance, that whole mechanism in my body was just totally whacked out. And what I noticed when I started my very first bottle of the CCWS, it was like all of this inflammation that was in my body, the things that were making me suspect prediabetes, blurry vision, tingling in my arms, the the sudden weight gain and all of the inflammation, and this massive craving for sugar and feeling like I could not ever keep my energy levels up without having to eat something all day because my blood sugar level would drop and drop and drop all throughout the day. It changed. It changed really quickly, actually. And it was like my body deflated like a balloon, is what it felt like that first time I did the CCWS. And then my cravings for sugar suddenly just vanished. And I was doing bone broth and all of these things. And it was like my body was actually changing really, really quickly. And so that is what I would encourage you to focus on, is that things are going to start changing very quickly once you start. And I'm excited to support you on that journey, because I know you are coming into that group coaching program, and we'll be able to help you course correct and make adjustments as it's happening. And so I would say we'll take it one step at a time, but know that things are going to start to change. And I have a lot of personal tips on how I retrain my body to digest sugars better, to battle that insulin resistance that had developed, which I didn't understand had developed very slowly over time because of the Candida. So we'll make sure that we support you in the moment with anything that comes up for you.
Yeah, and I too as well had insulin resistance. I didn't know it until after I started doing the research. I was like, oh, I had all those symptoms. That's what's happening with me. And there's so many people who actually have reversed diabetes with this cleanse. And it turns out it wasn't even diabetes. It was just a symptom of Candida living in their body. And, it's amazing how much everything balances out once the system is clear and can actually function without fighting this infection. And Maria, you asked my views on the keto diet while on the cleanse. I personally went ketogenic for pure keto for 6 months, a couple years ago when I first did the cleanse, and it's excellent because you're not eating barely any sugar, which is helping to starve the fungus, and it gives you so much of that dietary fat to take the cleanse with. And personally, for me, it helped to reset my entire endocrine system, my energy levels. I was so crystal clear focused because I was burning fat for fuel versus sugar for fuel. And many people don't know this, but we can burn sugar as our primary fuel source. This is where most of the population is. And with this kind of diet, we're constantly snacking. And, that's what mainstream keeps telling you, like eat 5 times a day and snack 16 times a day, feed your metabolism. And it's like, no, you don't need that much food. It's like constantly. A sugar burner is like if you imagine a fire and you're constantly dousing gasoline. It's just like, it lights up really fast and fiery, but it goes down really quick. And this causes a lot of inflammation, roller coaster rides, energy roller coasters. But when you do fat for fuel, you shift your metabolism into something called nutritional ketosis, and your body begins to run off of ketones for energy. And they're like this nice Yule log for your metabolism, where the energy is sustained throughout the day. It's anti-inflammatory. The ketogenic diet also is a diet used to help fight cancer. So there's a lot of popularity with the raw diet. also keto is great for some cancers as well, as it serves to starve out the cancer cells. So with this cleanse, it's perfect.
And I think this is where we are in the Candida Cleanser group is it's kind of the answer to why do people fail on the keto diet. There's something that happens. I'm actually in a few different keto groups, and when some people start a keto diet without knowing about Candida, they deal with massive die-off that is gruelingly slow because there isn't anything that can kill the Candida effectively. And so your immune system is basically trying to fight this Candida while you go keto, because now there's no food for the Candida, right? You're going towards fats. And people will break out in cystic acne, they'll get keto flu. It'll be so painful and difficult that they break and they go back to their old diet. So it's like not everybody is in the same stage of health. This is why some people, it's like, oh yeah, I went keto, it was so easy, I was able to just do it. But let's say they're stage 4 Candida and they just suddenly go keto, and you suddenly start starving the Candida, and the Candida is like, wow, what are you doing? And it just messes with your head, makes you break out. You get rashes, you get sick, and people will sometimes say, I tried to go keto and I got so sick I couldn't do it. And this is the difference, is you got to have something, a kill agent for the Candida in that case, right? So if somebody is actually dealing with stage 2, 3, 4 Candida and they just suddenly try to go keto, it can be very, very challenging. They can kick up all this die-off without having something to actually kill the Candida, and then it's almost like they just made things 1,000 times worse, and they don't know how to actually resolve the stuff that they just kicked up from the keto diet. So I do think that the keto diet is very, very, very helpful. But if you're also dealing with Candida, especially systemic Candida, you better have something like CCWS as a kill agent to also take care of the fungal Candida. And it will just, it's like such a game changer if you do the keto with the Candida cleanse, right? With our Candida cleanse. So
Yeah, and then just for the ladies, I know that keto is excellent for men. However, with women, because of our cycle, naturally we need a little bit more carbohydrates during our menstruation time. So I've heard mixed reviews for women that you actually have to adjust how many carbs you take at one point, because if it's prolonged and there's a deficiency of the healthy carbohydrates, you can actually really throw off your hormonal system. So there are, it's not like it's the best thing ever, you should do it always, but really with any diet really is constantly check in with yourself. Like, how am I feeling? Is this still serving me? Because we fluctuate every single day, every season, every year. What worked for us last year might not work for us today. So I try and stay away from that like dogmatic view on diet. You know, it's very much to each individual, and even to each individual it can change. Mm-hmm.
And another question from Maria about alopecia. And I'll just tell a quick story here. One of my housemates that I was living with back in 2015, she watched me go through a lot of my cleansing and healing. And she's Indian, so she has very beautiful, dark brown skin. And she had actually developed a fungal rash on her chest that was eating away her pigment. So she had all these white blotches on her chest. And then she developed a bald spot on her head, and it was getting bigger. And she didn't really discover it for a while, but then when she discovered it, it was about this big on her head, and she was freaking out. And I just, at that time, I was like, Priya, you got to try this. Like, you just got to try it. And she did it. And not only did her hair start to grow back in her bald spot, she had this little tuft that would stick out. She has like really curly hair, right? And so suddenly a few months after her cleanse, she was like, look! And she had this tuft of hair that was about an inch long that was sticking straight out because it was only an inch long from her before bald spot. That was no longer a bald spot. but all of her white spots that were like bleached, splotchy skin on her chest also disappeared. So that was after one bottle of CCWS, and I would highly recommend that she takes action sooner than later, because your hair follicles can be damaged to the extent that they can't repair themselves anymore. So the sooner she can take care of it, also take the broth, the things that are going to nourish her connective tissue, that are going to nourish her body. When I do bone broth, if I don't take bone broth for 2-3 weeks in a row, I notice my nails start to break, and my hair doesn't grow as fast if I'm not doing my bone broth regularly. So I've worked with a lot of people who, after they started doing bone broth, their hair starts growing like 10 times faster. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to help assist that process as well.
And as for her immune system freaking out, one thing I would recommend, we mentioned this before, it's like, well, as soon as you start taking this, your immune system will get a break. It's not finally like fighting against this like impenetrable armor. But also CBD oil, the liposomal CBD, this is an excellent way to just calm the nervous system, calm the immune system. Because when you're in fight or flight, when that stress response is triggered, when you're fighting an infection, it's almost like impossible to heal, because healing is done when you're in rest and digest. And oftentimes when that stress response is triggered, it's really hard to de-trigger ourselves, unless you have a breath work a practice or a meditation practice, or you're going to the acupuncture regularly, or getting a chiropractor adjustment. You may feel like you're relaxed, but you're not. And this happened to me when I was recently cleansing. I had this like itchy rash explosion, and I thought I was calm. I had meditated in the morning, I had done breath work, and I went to go see my chiropractor, and I walk in, and the first thing he says to me is like, whoa, what's happening? You are so stressed out right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I feel great. I walked here in the sunshine. And he's like, your pupils are like this big. That shows me that you are like in fight or flight, looking out for danger. So that was one way you could tell. It's like, how dilated are your pupils? And it is really, I highly recommend to like constantly find a way to get yourself into rest and digest. And CBD is an excellent way to do that, because you can take it anywhere with you, take a few pumps of the oil, and like 10-20 minutes later, you can just feel your entire body relaxing.
That's a great call. Absolutely.
Yeah,
actually, sometimes people start the hemp oil before they even do any Candida cleansing, and it starts to help your immune system fight Candida more effectively too. So it's really powerful stuff. And I included a link. Sorry, Jeff, I accidentally first sent it to you privately, but I meant to send it to the whole group. Save this link, everybody, if you haven't watched our webinar on the endocannabinoid system. Basically, since I discovered Candida Cleanser, the next time that I found something that was too profound to not share was learning and understanding why the endocannabinoid system is so important. And I mean, like, it is absolutely crucial for immune function and detoxing. They're realizing it's like the master system in your body that modulates every major system in the body. So it's one of those things that it's like, we are supposed to get this stuff. We have receptors all throughout your body for CBDs. So watch that webinar if you have not watched it, and there is an opportunity in there to learn about the one that we recommend and get your hands on it. I think there's actually a few people in here who have tried it. So there was a question above about what is the difference between Candida and systemic Candida. Aga touched on this just a little bit earlier in the call, but I'll just kind of summarize that again. Candida yeast lives in our gut. we will always have the yeast form of Candida in our gut. It's part of us. It's part of our ecosystem. You have to have it. It's actually there for you. It's a servant microbe. So I try to tell people, don't demonize Candida. It's not the Candida that is evil, right? It is, unfortunately, the way that our world is set up that is a little bit crazy. But the yeast is always supposed to be in your gut. It helps you because if you accidentally eat something that's a little poisonous, if you accidentally eat too much of the fermented berries on the bush that you found in the wild, it keeps you from getting sick. It helps to digest the stuff that you can't digest.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the modern world is that it's set up so that we're actually constantly over consuming sugars and carbs. We're also destroying our gut bacteria. We're destroying our microbiome with all the antibiotics, all of the toxins, all of the glyphosate, the pesticides that are in our food that are literally destroying your gut, right? These pesticides are designed to explode the guts of insects. And we're eating them. And they're also destroying our cells in our gut. So now you're developing these holes in your gut when your gut lining should be nice and tight, these tight junctions, they call them, get all loose. And then what happens is the yeast escapes out of these little holes in your gut. When the yeast escapes out of those holes into your gut, they get into your bloodstream. And what happens is they get confused because they're not supposed to go into your bloodstream until after we die. So normally, after an organism, every mammal, every organism has Candida in its gut, yeast, right? And after we die, our immune system stops functioning. And those yeasts at that point are supposed to mutate into a fungal form to help decompose us, right? That is when it's supposed to mutate into the fungal form, is after your immune system stops working. But the problem is our guts are getting destroyed. Candida yeast is escaping out of those holes. Also, food particles are escaping out of those holes and going into your bloodstream. So there's a number of things that are happening that mess us up because now your body's like, what is this? This is an invader, right? Now I have to fight this gluten. Now I have to fight this rice. Now I have to fight this potato or this chickpea or this tomato or eggplant or whatever it is. And then we start to develop food intolerances. But then not only that, the yeast that has escaped into your bloodstream is like, okay, time to mutate. We're going to start decomposing this organism. Oops, you're still alive. It's not supposed to be doing that. And so it's literally now finding places that it can digest you, and your immune system is constantly fighting it, right? Fighting. And then what happens? You get hit with stress. You get hit with a major life event. You get hit with a big loss in your life where suddenly you're under a ton of pressure, a ton of stress, and your immune system shuts down during those times and it stops fighting. And then what happens? The systemic Candida that's in your bloodstream that you've been trying to fight and push down suddenly has a heyday, flares up. And that's why after we go through something really stressful, we can get sick, really sick, right? That happens a lot, that after you've gone through a really stressful situation in your life, you suddenly get incredibly sick. And it's basically those little yeast that have escaped that maybe in the beginning when they start to escape, you almost don't feel it because your immune system's fighting it. But now when you suddenly don't have an immune system, it's like, right? And then your body might be able to be like, fight, recover to, oh, I'm kind of not where I used to be. I must be getting old, right? The story that we're all brainwashed to believe. And then you're just holding it and you're like, oh, I'm extra sensitive now. Oh, I'm allergic to this now. I'm allergic to that now. That's weird. And then again, if you go through another stressful time, it gets even worse. And then it gets worse and it gets worse. It starts to compound. Or you get antibiotics. And then after that, you go down another spiral, right? So if anybody here has experienced this, just go ahead and type a yes in the comments of, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me. Because that is exactly what happened to me, is over the years. And then I trace it back now of like, the reason why I went down between 2011 and 2013 was a round of antibiotics that I was given at Planned Parenthood in 2010 for something that my body was probably naturally fighting already just fine. But I don't know. I just was like, okay, I guess I'll take this. And then it was like, I started to gain weight. I started to have all these issues and it spiraled. So that is the difference between Candida yeast and systemic Candida. And I would say one of the biggest signs of systemic Candida is almost like a layer of like fluff, like squish of like swelling. I just noticed I swelled out. Like I just started to retain so much water everywhere. My thighs, my belly grew. Like I was gaining weight kind of all over my body. It was like I was retaining all this extra water. My metabolism got way slower. My immune function got much worse. I got sick more often. My allergies got a lot worse. I didn't know it at the time, but basically my Candida was getting more and more systemic. So once I did that first CCWS again, it was like, shh, it was like a balloon. And you'll notice in the group, sometimes people talk about peeing a lot on the cleanse. Like suddenly they have to pee 1,000 times a day on the cleanse. That happened to me too. And it was like my body was finally killing the Candida. And it was like, oh, I can let go of all this water that we've been holding just to try to protect itself from this damaging Candida. So yes, totally, yes, there's definitely a couple of yeses here.
I wanted to also add, it's also not just stress. It could be a really awesome time in Mexico where you drank tequila every night, right? It could be that time you had a weird stomach bug, right? Or we had a tub of ice cream with our girlfriends and some wine. It's also when we overindulge in those joys in life as well, not only stress. Yeah.
I love tequila. Funny.
I love tequila. Yeah, right. Especially in Mexico. Yeah, so I just also wanted to answer Lizzie's question here. The only test that I know, there's a lot of false negatives for Candida, especially stool, that only shows what's in the gut, what's coming out, what's the dead stuff that's actually being excreted by the bowels. A naturopath can do an antibody test for IgG, your IgG marker, and that can tell you if your body is fighting a fungal infection. And that's one of the best tests to get. And then again, it can also be a false negative.
Yeah, one of the challenges with Candida is that it does grow that exoskeleton and it attaches into your soft tissue, and it's literally carving out these pathways and growing in your soft tissue, and it's no longer circulating in your blood. So a lot of tests are not accurate because it's not that there's no Candida in there. And actually, the more yours has gone systemic and moving into your tissue, sometimes it's even harder to test for it because it's not always circulating in your blood, but it's moved into your tissue. So the tests aren't accurate. It's not actually picking up on the Candida because it's burrowed into your tissue.
Yeah, for me, the best test is the cleanse. If you feel die-off, you've got Candida. If you start feeling better for no reason, some people don't experience die-off at all, but all of a sudden they have more energy, their skin becomes brighter, they sleep better, they're more clear and grounded. It's like, okay, great, there was a Candida infection, and now you're just feeling your life without it, feeling better. So it really is a small investment, much less expensive than any test you can take. And either it'll be a maintenance dose to get that a layer that might be growing a little out of control, or it'll tell you flat out like, yep, you've got Candida by the die-off. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to bring our attention to the time. These live calls today are only 1 hour long, so we only have 3 more minutes. I'm going to include the link into the chat where you can learn more about the group coaching program that starts on January 17th. And again, that program, this link is going to tell you what the program comes with. And these live meetings are an example of what you would have access to every single week, but there's so much more. So I hope that you'll check that out if you want to ensure your success. And then also these next 2 days and next week, we're going to be going live again. So you have the links to tomorrow and the next day. So hope to see some of you guys the next couple days as well.
Yeah, thank you all for showing up and coming and joining us on the call. If you have any of us, if you're in the Facebook support group, please find me or Patty. And if you're going to join us for another call and you have a question that we didn't answer, type us that question in a private message, or even post it on Facebook, and make sure to tag us by using the @ sign. And then we can use that. We can answer that question in the next call. These are recorded, and we will be reposting them on the Facebook group and in the newsletter. So yeah, continue chatting with us and using us as your resource.
And make sure to check the times that are on the calls. They're all at different times. We wanted to just address different time zones because I know we have a community that's all over the world. So just check. Tomorrow's, I think, is at 10 a.m. I think.
Yeah, tomorrow is at 10 a.m. and then Wednesday is 4 p.m. And that's PST. All right. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. All right. Ciao.